And so, got on the plane, came back, and started reintegrating myself.
So now you come back and you guys are in this office, just you and David, which is what's it called?
Yes,
that building.
Scripture Union.
Scripture Union.
Yeah, Scripture Union.
So that's one.
That's
and
why,
then a few 4 months later, your girlfriend at the time, your fiancé at the time
comes back. Yeah, but
then you get married.
Yeah, but earlier, so when I joined David, like on a day-to-day basis, so we'd go to the office, we start strategizing, I am the stronger salesperson. Remember, I'd always had a sales career, so selling wasn't my problem.
Break it down. Let's demystify what Wylde was doing.
Okay, so Wylde, so remember we started out as a youth leadership development company.
Yeah.
So what we did is that we had programs that we would sell. Particularly NGOs are the ones that started buying the program first, because they had programs where they are supporting youth. So like Compassion had these young people they would pay fees for, so would come and train them through how to develop themselves, their careers, that kind of stuff. Just looking at different elements. Just that same inspiration Maneno's packaged into coming up with a plan for your life, soft skills and that kind of thing. So so the NGOs are the ones that took it up a bit more. So by the time I came back, we had World Vision on our roll, we had Compassion, and we had PSI.
And how, PSI, the guys who I remember
population
when they did,
services,
so they did something around AIDS.
So that was the thing. That was the youth program. So we would train the youth leaders in that. It was Nimechil program.
Yes,
I remember.
Yes.
Yeah, so we would train the people who are running that program in leadership skills, in whatever, so that as they go out to schools, they're able to, lead the clubs better.
Okay. Yeah. You'd train the people who are going out to do the training. So you're not training the leaders, consumers. You're training the ones who are going to be the consumers. Okay, the leaders. I get it.
The leaders, So those were like our 3 clients with other small deals.
What kind of retainers are they? Are they on retainer based or are they
I remember we started out on things like 15K, 80K type of deals. Like you do maybe a program for a week. No, in total.
In total?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what happened in that year, 2004, is that in our selling, David had made friends with the HR of PSI. So she came, I think she had booked for a training program and she had a trainer coming to do a training. And then I think the trainer pulled out last minute or something. So that one where you already have people booked, they're flying in from all over and the training still has to happen. So she came and asked David, can you guys train, an older group? I know you do youth, but can you train an older group? So, of course, we say yes.
You should do
and I think at that point, I've trained Jungus, I've trained people all over the world. I know all these concepts, we know all these things. Yeah, we have a master's in leadership here and, psychology and stuff. We GM it. So we took it up, we went and did the 3-day training. It was, I think, leadership / personal development program. By the time we finished the 3rd day, in that crowd, there was like 20 people. So it's people, long-term career. So we had some older people nearing retirement plus new people. But all of them unanimously said, we've never been to such an inspiring program in our lives before.
What?
So very good ratings. So the HR is pretty happy and she comes back and says, okay, this is good. In fact, I remember when we got that deal, went through the paperwork, onboarded as suppliers, then I think we're going to be paid 240K for the 3 days or something. First big check that we made.
That's good money.
Yeah, that's good money, especially for young people like us. So when she asked for an ETR receipt, we were looking at each other for what's that. We didn't even know what an ETR receipt is. We went, found out what it was, borrowed some money from David's sister who was working at the UN at the time, so she bankrolled us. Went, bought an ETR machine, printed the first receipt, took it to her, and then waited for the payment to come through. Went, did the training and came back. So after that training and the very enthusiastic feedback that came back, we went back and then asked ourselves, were we downplaying our skills by thinking that we can only serve the youth market? And yet here we are, we've just come back from training, the older demographic, and they say it's the best one they've attended. So what have all these other training companies been doing? What are we bringing to the table that is different and fresh? So these
are entrepreneurship lessons you're learning on the go.
Yes.
I mean, it's not, you couldn't have, you were just planning according to your market.
Yeah.
the demographic that you thought your skills were best at, not knowing that our value
was necessary.
That demographic.
So I remember that point we dropped the youth branding. In fact, that time I remember the logo was very youthful, but then we ended up now saying remove that youthful look on our company profile and everything, and then we put a more corporate look. It was a Word document with a little bit branding on it, and that was our company profile.
Okay,
we dropped that youth branding and started to sell to everyone.
But you still kept the same name?
Yeah, we kept Wylde. Yeah. In fact, down the line we had to rethink because when we had Wylde Youth Leadership Development, WYLDE, it was still in the name that we registered, it was still Wylde. It's just that in the youth branding, we would talk about what Wylde stands for.
Oh, in a very different.
Yeah, but because we were youth focused, it was okay for the people we were targeting. But after that, we just kept the name Wylde and dropped. And somehow we managed to register Wylde International as the name. So we're always known as Wylde International from the beginning.
Okay, that's so cool. I didn't even know where Wylde.
So we just dropped the description of youth, blah, blah, blah. So we still had the youth programs where we're like, yes, we can do programs for staff and programs for youth.
So, oh man, that, I'm trying to, let me try and help an entrepreneur. So you've just discovered that you serve two markets.
Yes.
Maybe you thought you only served market A, but now you're figuring out through circumstances that you can serve market A and market B.
Market B.
So you guys went straight and realized that your branding and your outward appearance facing from a logo perspective, from a branding perspective.
It was restrictive earlier.
So you went, that is what you realized you needed to change.
Yeah.
You would have also had to change your name. It's just that your name was not registered as Wylde Youth. It was just Wylde.
It was Wylde, and Wylde didn't necessarily mean anything, so we could keep it. So in fact, what ended up happening down the line is that we did a rebrand of the way the logo looked, but we didn't change the name. So what you see as a Wylde logo today was a process of rebranding where we worked with some of the best branding people. Some of them are still with us today at the Sandbox. And that lesson of learning to change the look comes down again with Sandbox.
Okay.
Later.
I love it. This okay. This whole conversation has been an entrepreneurship conversation, but just through your life.
Yes.
So I'm just anytime I feel something that you're running over, I'll just sort of delay you.
Yeah.
Because this is not normal. What you're saying, you're talking about it.
Us guys were just going through the motions,
like every other entrepreneur,
and learning on the go. So I remember one of the other things
even
that happened.
ETR, that means you enter a whole governmental
process that ushered in another new phase of challenges, because now we realized with registering for ETR, we had to register for VAT, which means KRA, which means now we're entering the regulatory space. And then there was another animal down the line called National Industrial Training Authority, which threw quite a number of curveballs that I'll talk about.
You'll talk about
I'll talk about them.
Okay, good. Just as long as you mentioned. Okay, let's. So you've done this rebranding.
So that after the rebrand, I remember very well, I was invited. A friend of mine, an ISEC friend of mine, they were doing some international HR conference in Kenya. So who did she know in Kenya? Joram. So she invited me to MC the event. And this event was bringing together all the different HR managers from all top companies in Kenya. And HR managers are the ones who approve what? Training. So I go there. I'm the MC for event. Everyone gets to see me.
With the fish.
Everyone gets to know me. Exchange cards. It was like a 3-day conference. Exchange cards with people. Oh, what do you do? We run a training company. So a few of those corporates took an interest. And I remember one big one was Oil Libya. Susan Lukalo, I can remember her very well until today. Oh, she's like, who is this youthful new training company? So she invites me, we go pitch in her office. She's like, are you really, really sure? I'm like, yeah, you can ask PSI what the experience was. So now at least we are confidently pitching. So Oil Libya say, we'll give you 20 people and test and see whether your training is really good. And so they gave us 20 people.
Who are you going to be training these Oil Libyas?
Just their staff. Okay. So they selected an initial 20 staff members, again in a personal development program.
And maybe, so this staff would probably be their managers.
Yeah, and the program was branded. It was called the X Factor program. How do you build an X Factor that helps you perform at a higher level than before? So that's something David had created. David was he was a technical expert in creating content.
You're
Me,
more
I was
in
a
sales.
business guy.
So in terms of even your partnerships, you get partners who complement.
Yeah, it was complementary. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't plan it. It just happened. It's later that we realized we were very complementary in how it worked. And so David would create the content. He knows all the psychological principles and everything. Then the two of us just deliver. So Olivia gave us 20 people. I remember they have a training center at Mobile Plaza Uko. So it was happening there. So we started training these guys, day 1, day 2, and you see, we're training them such that during lunch or whatever, they are going back to the office. So they are going back to the office and saying, hey, you guys, this training is mind-blowing, it's life-changing, it's what...
At this time, who are your competitors? Or do you even have competitors?
Maybe the people who would be perceived as competitors, I remember them, it was people like Consultants for Effective Training, Peak Performance. There's these guys who are affiliated to KPMG that later became Razor Group. So there was people in the market who offered training.
And locals, like
no, a lot of them were tagged onto international, at least theory, or it was
like there
were.
So what was making?
And in fact, that was something that we really debated at the beginning. Are we going to franchise foreign programs? Because a lot of advisors at the time used to tell us, but Kenyans like foreign programs, so just get a foreign program and whatever. But remember that African thing. We are like, but if we can't create our own solutions, so we always insisted on doing our own content from scratch, and it would be Africanized, it would be relatable.
Hence why
it would
so
have
impactful.
Case studies that were African, yes. So at the beginning, there are people who didn't believe we were going to make it with this approach of building our own tools and content. But later on, it turned out to be
whatever. What have you done?
Yeah. Because even we used to look at the other programs that were in the market, and you find that the videos or the role plays or everything are being done by white people, and we're like, how are people relating to this, whatever? It's case studies of Google and IBM and whatever sort of thing. But we're like, why does it have to be foreign to be validated as working? So we just stuck with doing our own thing.
So
and we
that's
grew.
Crazy. So
the interesting thing is, like with the Oilibia thing,
it was your own content first and
foremost. By halfway through the second day, the HR manager came down and said, the feedback we are hearing about your program, we are going to train the entire company.
And that's how many people?
They had offices in Mombasa, they had offices in Eldoret. It was like 100 and something people. Yeah. So that was, I would say, our first big break.
No, your first big break was 40K. Don't the beginning of humble.
40K, yeah.
The time of humble beginnings.
I
say they start making millions, they forget.
Yeah,
I'm joking.
I mean, the first million check we got was from Libya. Yeah.
Okay,
and that presented another problem down the line. Yeah.
Which is true, but then there's something that just from there's something that you've talked that for me is so big. IP content.
Yes.
So because you are not. When you're training people, you need to give them books, you need to give them materials, you need to give them, there's something that you're given.
Yes.
There's a course that you're given. That course you guys locally created.
We created it from scratch. The case studies, the models,
the examples,
everything. Like David was very good at coming up with these acronyms that mean something. So we'd have something like Joram, Jason's for this. He was very good.
Something localized.
Yeah, something localized. So we'd really, in fact, I remember later on we had an entrepreneurship program where we had a fictional character called Kilimo. Like we've always done our own original content.
And the beauty of that is that now, let's say you're charging 30 Gs per person who you'll take to the course. That's, I know it's a bit high. But anyway, whatever, if you're charging that, let's say the material costs 8 Gs.
Yeah.
You don't have to give back
license fee
to
the content creator. And that was part of the reason we grew very quickly as a company, because our pricing was aligned to our competitors. So charge the same thing our competitors were charging, but for localized content and keeping all the money. Yeah, and we learned very early how powerful it was to create your own content, because if you needed to make any changes, if you needed to tweak it, if you needed to change the examples or whatever it is, you didn't have to go back and report to some guy in the US or Europe. But I remember for a very long time we were swimming against the grain, where everyone wouldn't believe that we would succeed. But I also guess because of the level of excellence of how we delivered, how we did our materials, how we printed them, like we just did them. And that was our first lesson in this stuff is not rocket science. Just because it comes from the US doesn't mean it's superior. We were getting the same reaction for our locally developed content, sometimes even better. People saying, I've been to company X, I've been to company Y, but you guys, what you're doing, this is transformational.
Oh man, that's powerful. And I love what you've just said. You said your pricing, you still kept it competitive. Maybe it's a bit less just to win.
No. David was in peak performance. He knew what the going rate was.
Oh, so he didn't decide to reduce by Kalus, 3 Gs, nothing.
No.
We keep it here.
We kept it there, and in fact, after we did Oil Libya, they used to fly us to Mombasa, to LD, to train their people there, keep us in hotels. We were living the jet set life.
Okay, let me ask you now. So I don't want to run over this first big check. First big checks are good because they let you know that you're not dreaming.
Yes.
In terms of, hey, we can do this. This is a business that I can run. But also they're bad in that you start getting all this money.
Get complacent.
And so did this guy say, first of all, we're putting you on a retainer basis, or it was just this one course?
No. So I mean, training the entire company meant that we had to work for a significant period of time.
How long would that be like?
Maybe it went for a year, because this was 2007. Ooh. So something happened at the end, the post-election. Which is a story in itself. But anyway, when we started Oil Libya, because now we had PSI and Oil Libya as logos of, you can ask them the quality of our training, we started to get a lot of other corporates. I remember we trained people like Postbank, Wylde International Hospital. There's just like different other corporates that started coming on board. And so our client portfolio really grew during that time.
I think what killed our company, FOAB Digital, was too fast growth. Like I said, there's a demon in the speed of growth, because now you're being called to 3 places to train at once. But just you and Kamau. Yes, just me and Kamau. We started to build a team. We got, remember Lucy was our first employee in admin. She's now a HR manager somewhere. Then we would now get associates. You remember David had his network of peak performance guys. So it's people like Forez, Emmanuel, blah, blah, blah. So there's people we knew from the industry, where if we got a lot of work, we would come, train them through our material, go and deliver. So it worked out for some time. Okay, until let's chill at this point. Until the next bump. before when we get the next bump. Like, so what happens now when you hire somebody else and it's no longer, you see, the biggest seller is you. When Joram goes there and he's the one doing the talk, and especially with what you're training, it takes some that charisma, that emotional connection, the delivery. Of course, the material is wonderful, but even the delivery. If he's wonderful and too good, why don't they now just hire him without you?
So
did that start happening?
So that's when we began learning, I think, lessons in how to build a company versus building a brand that's centered around an individual. If you go back to Wylde's history, you'll realize we never put David or myself on a poster saying that this program is going to be done by person X. We were always like, we are building a company from scratch. So we were always keen on, even when we created material, David would create training of trainer manuals, because he knew how to do that. That was his training.
What? He created the material and then he created the
training of trainers manual. Like, we would have all that back end stuff of how this is how you deliver the course, which is why when we would bring other people who have some training experience, we could train them through how to deliver our content, and they would be able to go and
you
do
put
it alongside
systems
us
to keep your quality control.
Yes. So at some point,
brilliant.
Maybe I would go somewhere with, one trainer, David would go somewhere else with Winnie. Like, we had people around us, so we would be able to do 2 simultaneously, even if 2 companies hired us. We were very keen on that building of systems in the back end.
But then building of systems, now on the other side, financials.
Yes.
So financials is probably the reason why 90% of entrepreneurs fail. Because you start making $1 million.
A lot of money,
well, a lot of money, just say, but you're not thinking, you've not understood reinvestment. You get a new office, all of these things, paying Kumbe 80% was going to suppliers. Like, so none of you I'm hearing about financials.
No financial background, no.
Is it Eugene Banda? Was that where Eugene Banda?
No, that's much later. That was like 2014. We are talking 2007. So what happened is, so one of the things that kicked in end of 2007, so I got married December 1st, 2007. So, that new lifestyle begins.
Is your wife working in Kenya this time?
She was back with that same mask on her job here. So we get married. David got married 4 months later.
Double income, no kids.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yes. Moved into Ngumo, and life begins in that setting of marriage. But then in 2007 is when we have elections. So we go and vote, and then we have post-election violence. So business just kind of slows down through the next year.
Yeah.
It was interesting.